Okay, let's start with a confession. There was a time when I thought I had all the answers neatly packaged in a tiny theological bow. I think I was about 10 years old. I thought I lived in the best country of the world, had the best religion. I was saved. Um, how did this happen? It was so improbable. Any of you ever have that time in your life of a tidy theological bow of certainty? Nope. Well, it's funny. Life has a funny way of unraveling our uncertainties, doesn't it? As my world continued to expand, as our worlds continue to expand through traveling, through our relationships, through our studies, through our consciousness, through our capacity to change and be changed, I became ever more comfortable with doubt, with not knowing. I see some heads nodding, with living with the questions, seeking that to which creation itself speaks, something common to all of us as part of being human and being alive, something that transcends religion, something that brings joy and connection. I even went to seminary. Some people call it cemetery, searching for Jesus, searching for God, under, around, beyond, within the thousands of years of doctrines and institutions created in his name. I bet you went through that, Jim, especially for the still speaking God. And I know Jim studied process theology with Jim Cobb. And I remember so many times not wanting to come out of the closet as a religious person or ordained person. I remember in my early years at Union Theological Seminary, Columbia, serving at Riverside Church. One day I was standing in line in New York City at the DMV, and the stranger asked me what I did for a living. And I heard myself say, "Oh, I'm in community organizing." It, it wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth. And at that moment, I realized I'm more comfortable with being seen as spiritual, but not religious, or a nun or a seeker. And it happens over and over again. You know, I was driving up the road this morning looking at Oakland Hills Tennis Club. I feel the same way. Like I have to come out about myself as I hold back on that part until just get to know me as a person, you know, step aside from the preconceived ideas that people have about what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Because there's a lot of white Christian nationalism, you're forgetting about Jesus, forgetting about the way of love that's alive in this country. Um, I also felt that way whenever I was traveling outside of this country, especially when I was with people from all over the world, you know, Bali or in the Amazon, the Galapagos in Ecuador, in Colombia and Mexico, Singapore, China, Nepal, Bhutan. Time and time again, I listened to generalizations about the US and about Christianity. And I needed for them to get to know me first as a person and to experience my way of being in order to have hope to connect, to find what's in common as a starting point. But here's the thing, all of that discomfort is also an invitation. It's an invitation to explore, how is God still speaking? Why is there such resistance? What really matters in our hunger for holiness? How do we move beyond titles and traditions? And I have a hunch that I'm not alone in this journey. I know some of you don't like to hear this statistic, but I got to put forth what it is. So you've heard about the rise of nuns, those who check nun when they are asked what their religious affiliation is. And that's 55% of our neighborhood, our surrounding neighborhood. And some people see this as a gross generalization, which it is, of a very diverse population. Some people see it as the beginning of the end, the rise of secularism, as if the fabric of society is falling apart, unraveling one stitch at a time. But what if it's actually a gift? I mean, it's not so different from the early movement of the followers of Jesus. There was so much syncretism. There were so many reasons why people, I'm looking at Jim's face like, get it? Yeah. People then and now are hungering for connection and belonging and meaning and truth and justice for all people, a place of radical inclusivity and belonging. If anything, and that's not going away, if anything, it's intensified. People are still asking these big questions. Who am I? Why am I really here? What gives life meaning? How can I connect with something greater than myself? And I deeply believe that these nuns, spiritual but not religious, are not necessarily rejecting spirituality or the sacred. They're rejecting oftentimes religious institutions and dogmas that no longer resonate or feel relevant in their lived experience. And you know what? That's okay. Because in fact, it's pushing us, all of us, religious and non-religious alike, to dig deeper and discover what truly matters. This hunger, this yearning for connection and meaning, it is as old as the human experience. It's been expressed in countless ways and cultures throughout history. The psalmist speaks of the deer panting for water, hungering, thirsting. The Hindu sages talk about unloosening the knots of the heart. Buddhists point to the awakening from the long night of delusion. And Carl Sagan, he finds in love the only way to bear with the vastness of this cosmos and our meaning and our place within it. And of course, we can't forget Jesus, who had a knack for finding the sacred everywhere, every day, every moment. Remember all the things he said about the kingdom of God? Where is it? It's here, but it's not yet. It's at hand. It's among us. It's within us. It's everywhere. I don't know about you, but when I was 10 years old and I thought I had almost all of it figured out, I thought, great, another scavenger hunt. Jesus. Where are you? I don't think Jesus is sending us on a wild goose chase. I think he's telling us that the sacred, the divine, the holy, whatever you want to call it, isn't some far off realm we need to strain to reach. It's right in our midst, in the spaces between us, in the emptiness and openness within us, in the ordinary moments of our lives. It's as if Jesus is saying, I know that hunger and thirst that you're feeling, that longing for connection and belonging and meaning. Stop looking out there. It's already here, within you, among you. in your very search for your hunger and your thirst are your own faith seeking understanding, as paraphrasing Augustine. Different words, same longing. It's like we're all ordering from this cosmic menu, just with different cultural seasonings and languages. And that menu is vast and varied. You want meaning on the side of community? It's here. We can create it. How about a hearty portion of awe and spiritual transcendence? It's here. It's here. How about music that unties the knots in your heart? It's right here now with these musicians this morning. And sometimes when we go to new places, it changes our perception of what seems so ordinary right here. I remember there was this experience in Bhutan up in the high Himalayas, and there was one of these river bridges on either side of the banisters. It was high above one of these like powerful rivers streaming, and the winds were blowing. The most colorful banners flying as we were walking across this rickety bridge. And now when I do laundry or if I hang it outside, I think of those prayer flags. They're sacred. They're blowing in the wind, they're being dried. You know, it captures our imaginations in new ways. And whenever I think of that pile of laundry in my bedroom, I think of those Himalayan prayer flags, and it helps me to get through that mountain of laundry. So it points to something we all know already, that the holy and what sanctuary is isn't just confined to churches or temples or synagogues or mosques, is it? It's in the most ordinary, mundane moments of our lives. I know we're in California for many reasons, and one of them is the profound beauty of this place. And when I first moved here, I promised myself I will never get used to this, and I haven't. The breathtaking beauty of looking out at the fog rolling in under the Golden Gate Bridge, looking at Mount Tam, you know, in that fog, purplish blue, the water shimmering with sunlight, the fragrance of eucalyptus and redwood, it takes my breath away. John Muir, the great lover of California's natural wonders, once wrote, "Everybody needs beauty as well as bread, places to play and pray in, where nature may heal and cheer and give strength to body and soul alike." Now, Muir might not have used that phrase, hunger for holiness, but isn't that what he's describing? This deep human need for connection, for beauty, for something that nourishes not only our bodies, but our imaginations, our souls. And you don't need to be John Muir or a famous naturalist to have these profound moments. I was thinking about last Friday, there were a group of us that were up here on campus at Skyline. And we had just watched an excellent but deeply troubling documentary entitled Bad Faith together. Any of you seen it? Besides the group, yeah. And we were grappling with the heavy realities it presented. Our hearts were heavy. Our minds were reeling from the exposed traumas. within religious institutions. And yet, in the midst of that emotional turmoil, we stepped outside for a moment and remembering it was Catherine's birthday. And life with these strange juxtapositions, great way to celebrate a birthday, huh? You might say. It's a strange juxtaposition because it called us to celebrate even as we were processing shock and grief. And so there we were, this motley little crew of seekers and doubters and followers of the ways of Jesus as best we can. And we were holding hands, eyes were closed in silence, breathing. And the sky was transforming without our knowing before us, deepening from a soft blue to a rich purple. And then, as if on cue, the moon began to rise above the redwoods, luminous, full, and impossibly large. This glorious orb on the horizon rising up above the trees. And we easily could have missed it. I just happened to notice it because I was getting a wine glass that was outside. And we went out and we caught it. And I felt a surge of wonder, grace, connection, tiny, powerful, whatever you want to call it. It was palpable. And I remembered squeezing each other's hands and taking photos and laughing. And I think we all felt something. The cooler breezes carrying that scent of bay laurel and eucalyptus. And for this brief, magical moment, the weight of what we had just witnessed in that film seemed to lift a bit because we belonged with him. And we were in the presence of something far greater and more beautiful than the image. This, my friends, is the hunger for holiness we manifest. It's these shared moments of wonder, emerging even and oftentimes from our darkest of moments, that we touch something greater than ourselves. We remember our place in this vast, beautiful universe. We feel connected to each other, to nature, to ourselves, to whatever it is, to all. So let us embrace our doubt, our seeking, our not knowing, our wondering if maybe we've got a bit of none in us too. And embrace it as a gift of our shared hunger for holiness. And may we challenge ourselves to see that divine spark of God in everyone. Even the guy who cut us off in traffic, or that train that was stopped for the longest time as I was driving up here this morning. I know it's a stretch. That is what the spiritual practice is about. He too was suffering, or she too. May we approach this world with open hearts and open minds. It takes a lot of strength and courage to do that. Open, ready to be astonished by the beauty, moved by compassion. May we remember that whether we find ourselves in church, in a temple, a forest, or hanging laundry in our backyard, we're all part of this grand, mysterious, awe-inspiring culture and universe. Because we as humans are seekers of the sacred. We are all in our own wonderfully weird and unique ways, reaching for the stars and reaching for one another and reaching for our authentic selves. And maybe in reaching together, we'll create a constellation of compassion and wonder that lights up the night for generations to come. Amen. And a little a woman too.